Mike Delgado is sitting in his truck in the Costco parking lot. It's a Tuesday afternoon in June. Engine off. Phone in his hand. He just did something he'd been putting off for 4 months. He logged into his 401k. Mike is 58. He's been a regional logistics manager for the same distribution company for 26 years. He runs a team of 11 people. He can tell you the on-time delivery percentage for his region for the last 6 quarters, off the top of his head. He is not a man who avoids numbers. But he avoided this one. The balance finally loaded on the screen. It wasn't a shock, not the way people describe shocks. It wasn't a gut punch. It was quieter than that. It was a number that was real. A number he'd actually built, dollar by dollar, over half his working life. And it was also, unmistakably, not enough. Not close to enough. He did the thing you do when a number disappoints you. He read it again. Like it might change. That moment is not Mike's failure. Sitting in a parking lot, in a truck, staring at a balance that's honest and insufficient at the same time, that's the moment most people your age eventually have. Nobody prepares you for it. Nobody prepares you for anything after 50. All the retirement content on this platform is built for 27-year-olds with 40 working years ahead of them, and a Roth IRA they just opened. That's not this channel. If you're 55, 60, 65, and you've got real savings, but you already know the math doesn't add up, you're the reason I make these. So let's do the thing Mike did. Let's look at the actual number. The National Institute on Retirement Security published new research this year. One line in it should be sitting in the back of every 55 to 64-year-old's mind. Among workers aged 55 to 64, the median amount saved for retirement is $30,000. Not $300,000. $30,000. That same research found something else. Workers in that age bracket have only saved 19% of what they're actually on pace to need. 19%. Not halfway there. Not 2/3 of the way there. Less than a fifth. Now let's take that number, $30,000, and run it through a formula. Retirement planners use it to figure out how much savings can safely pay out every year without running out. It's called the 4% withdrawal rule. Here's what it means in plain terms. You take your total savings, and you can typically pull out about 4% of it each year for the rest of your life without draining the account too fast. So, 4% of $30,000 is $1,200 a year. That's $100 a month. That's what the typical near-retiree's savings would generate, on top of Social Security, for the rest of their life. Sit with that for a second. I'm not going to rush past it the way most finance videos rush past the number that actually matters. $100 a month. That's a car payment on a used sedan. That's 2 tanks of gas. That's not a retirement. That's a rounding error next to what a retirement actually costs. I want to be clear about something. I'm not in the business of scaring you and walking away. Maybe your number is bigger than $30,000. For a lot of you watching, it is. This still applies to you. Even the better-off households your age aren't where they think they are. Vanguard's most recent numbers on 401k accounts show the median balance for workers 55 to 64 sitting at $107,269. Run that through the same 4% math. You get about $4,300 a year. Roughly $358 a month. Better than $100. Still nowhere near a retirement on its own. That's the thesis of this entire video. There's a gap. A specific, calculable dollar and cents gap. It sits between what most people your age have actually saved and what a safe withdrawal from that savings would produce. And here's the moment that changes everything. The moment you calculate the gap for real. Using your real number, not a number you're hoping is close. That's the moment everything about how you spend the next 5 to 10 years changes. Here's the first thing I want to reframe for you. I think you're carrying around the wrong diagnosis of your own situation. You think the problem is that you didn't save enough early enough. And now it's basically too late to matter. That's the story most 58-year-olds tell themselves in that parking lot. The actual problem is narrower than that. And it's more useful than that. The actual problem is this. You're still budgeting and living like someone who has 30 more years to let compounding do the work quietly in the background. You don't. You have somewhere between 7 and 15. The strategy that works beautifully with 30 years left is close to useless with 10. It's not that you failed at the long game. It's that you're still playing the long game when you need to be playing a completely different one. Let me show you what that different game actually feels like. There's a piece of physics in it that most people never get told out loud. Picture a man pushing a boulder up a hill. When you're 27, the boulder's small and the hill is long. You push a little bit every month. A couple $100 into an index fund. And gravity does almost all the remaining work over the next 35 years. In this metaphor, gravity is compound interest, money that earns money, which then earns even more money on top of that, year after year. You barely have to push. Time pushes for you. Now picture Mike at 58. He's not pushing a small boulder up a long hill anymore. He's pushing a boulder that's roughly the same size. Maybe bigger, because he's got more income now to work with. But the hill is a third as long. The distance he has to cover before retirement is compressed. Compound interest used to do most of the lifting. Now it only has maybe 8 or 10 years to work, instead of 35. It's still helping him. It hasn't stopped helping him. But it's not carrying the load the way it once could. That's not a moral failing. That's arithmetic. But it's arithmetic almost nobody explains to you plainly. So instead, people just feel vaguely, permanently behind. They never understand why the ground shifted under them. This is the emotional center of everything Frank is telling you today. The boulder didn't get lighter. The hill got shorter. Once you understand that distinction, the next decade stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like a specific, solvable engineering problem. Maybe you've made it this far, and that math landed for you. The $30,000, the $100 a month, the shortened hill. If so, I want to ask you for something small before I give you the rest of it. Subscribe to this channel. Here's why I'm asking, and it's not the reason most channels give you. Think about who in your life is having this conversation with you about money. Your friends? Your kids? Your financial advisor, who's paid to keep things pleasant? If nobody is, that's exactly why this channel exists. Most people your age go through that parking lot moment completely alone. Then they go back to work Monday morning and don't say a word about it to anybody. That silence is doing real damage. This is the place where somebody says the number out loud. Now let's talk about what Mike actually did next. The story doesn't end with him staring at his phone. Here's the second reframe. It might matter more than the first one. You think the problem is that you're 58, and it's too late to change the trajectory in any meaningful way. Here's the actual problem. You're still treating too late as all or nothing. Either you fix everything, or none of it counts. That's false. 10 years of saving hard starting at 58 won't produce the same dollar figure as 10 years starting at 27 would have. Nobody's claiming that. But it still beats 10 more years of drifting. The comparison that actually matters isn't you at 58 versus you at 27. It's you at 58 who acted versus you at 58 who didn't. Those two people end up in very different places by 68. And that gap is still entirely in your control. Mike didn't quit his job. He didn't sell the house. What he did was smaller than that, and more boring than that. Boring is exactly why it works. He went back to HR the following week. He increased his 401k contribution by 6 percentage points. Not because he suddenly found extra income. He ran his actual monthly spending for the first time in years, and he found about $640 he genuinely wasn't tracking. He also used something called the catch-up contribution, a rule that lets workers 50 and older put more money into their retirement accounts each year than younger savers can. The tax code allows this because it recognizes people in Mike's position need to move faster with less time. Mike didn't panic and load up on something risky to try to catch up fast. That's the version of this that ends in disaster, chasing returns because you're scared. He kept the same boring index-based investments he'd had for years. He just started feeding them a lot more money. 6 months later, his balance hadn't transformed his life. That's not the point of the story. The point is the trajectory changed. The hill was still short. But he started pushing like someone who understood exactly how short it was. Not someone still coasting on the assumption that time would handle it. I want to give you 3 things to do this week. Not this year. This week. This is the same list Mike worked through that week in the Costco parking lot. I've watched too many people leave a video like this one feeling something, and then doing nothing with it before the feeling faded. First, log in and get your actual number the way Mike did. Not an estimate you've been carrying around in your head from 3 years ago. Pull up every retirement account you have. Your 401k. Your IRA. Any old accounts sitting at former employers you never rolled over. Add them all together this week. You cannot fix a number you're avoiding. Second, run your number through the same math I ran for you tonight. Take your total. Multiply it by 4%. That gives you a rough estimate of what your savings alone could safely generate per year before Social Security. Write the number down somewhere you'll actually see it again, not buried in a note on your phone. That number is the honest starting line for every decision you make from here forward. Third, call whoever handles your 401k. This week, not sometime this quarter. Ask 2 specific questions. What is my current contribution percentage? And am I using the full catch-up contribution I'm allowed at my age? Most people over 50 are eligible for meaningfully higher contribution limits than younger workers. Most of them never adjust their number to take advantage of it. That one phone call takes 15 minutes. It's the closest thing to a free lever you have left at this stage. That's it. 3 things. All doable by Friday. The math at 58 is different from the math at 27. The hill is shorter. The boulder feels heavier. Nobody handed you a fair set of instructions for this part of the climb. But the math at 57 still works. It's not broken. It's not too late. Not in the way that parking lot version of you assumes. You just have to be willing to look at it. The real number. Not the hope for one. Then start pushing like you understand exactly how much hill is left. That's what this channel is for. Get the number. Do the math. Come back next week.